Hi guys, Will Terry here, and this is a video where I'm going to comment on all your comments. And just for those of you who might be new to my channel, I do talk about Pickleball Paul. That's what the series that I'm working on right now. How I'm going to make $50,000 on this book, and that's actually, this video will be part of a playlist, so you see the little numbers in the thumbnail, and that's how many videos I have in this playlist. But before I get going, who am I? I taught illustration and children's book illustration for 9 years at UVU. I have illustrated over 30 children's books for publishers like Penguin Random House and Scholastic. I'm a co-host on the wildly popular 3-Point Perspective podcast. I'm a co-owner at svslearn.com, which is a self-paced online children's book illustration, comic book illustration learning platform. My current love project is this children's book, Pickleball Paul, and you can find out more at pickleball-paul.com. All right, so updates for this week. Not a whole lot to update. We have sent out a few wholesale orders, reorders, which is really great. Some people asking to do some collaborations. I hope that some of those happen and I can report on those in future videos. But this is where I update you on ongoing project. This is definitely my get rich slow scheme. And one thing that I did learn this week is I was typing in my ISBN number that I included in the book, and I actually have it on the barcode in the back here, and it doesn't show up. And it was driving me crazy because on bookproject.com, and that's the website where I bought my ISBNs, it's BOWKER. I have an account with them, and I bought ISBNs for my other books as well, what they don't teach in art school. And it says that it's active status, it's assigned, everything looks good on their end. I even called the company, and they're like, yeah, it's assigned, it's everything, it should show up. Well, so then I started looking into, another person said, well, maybe you need to submit it to the Library of Congress. That's how you get it to show up. And I found out that the LCCN number, a Library of Congress control number, is another number that you can get. You can add it to the largest library in the world called the Library of Congress, but that doesn't make an ISBN show up either. So I called Boker back, and I went to my local library, and I asked them some questions. I wanted to talk to a librarian. Hey, how come my book doesn't show up? And what it comes down to, the answers that I've been given is, it actually won't show up until you're being sold in stores, and then it's added to those databases. So, the more success that you have with your book, the more it will show up. Well, we've been selling it at pickleball tournaments, and we've been selling online from our own website, and those aren't going to make it show up. So the only way that it's really going to show up in a search for librarians and for bookstores is to actually be selling it in bookstores. And I'm working on that by getting the book into Ingram. It's INGRAM, and they are a book wholesaler. And I'm learning about that process. I haven't gotten my book in there yet, but just to give you some really quick background, bookstores don't buy their books from the publishers. They buy them from a wholesaler like Ingram. There's another main competitor to Ingram, and I can't remember the name of them. But anyway, the reason they work with Ingram is, if you've ever worked for a company and you want to buy something for the company, it's really difficult because you got to go through accounting and get a purchase order. You got to get a PO number, and then you got to work with the retailer and say, well, I want to buy X amount. What is that total cost going to be without tax? And you get that number, and you go back. And anyway, there's a lot of red tape involved in buying something. They don't give most people in the company a Visa card to just be able to just purchase something. So the wholesaler makes it easy because each bookstore or library can have one account with Ingram who has all the books there. And then all they need to do is just get on the Ingram website and order the books they want, and they'll get billed. And that's why it works better for bookstores and the like. And so anyway, I'm going to get my book in there. So those are some updates for this week. I will say that I'm down to 3 boxes left of books that aren't part of this wall right here. And I told you guys in one of the earlier videos that I had that this represented about 2/3 of my books, and a third was stacked off camera over here, and there were some over here, and then there were some over at my salesman's house, and those we've gone through pretty much. He still has some cases with him, but so it's getting pretty exciting because eventually I'll start stealing from this stack right here, and hopefully you guys can see that in future videos. So there was a lot of really good comments on the last video that I made, which was the harsh reality for entrepreneur illustrators. And I just thought, you know what, rather than answering a few questions, I'll just comment on all the comments and let that kind of guide the video. So here we go. The first one, identify so much with your experience. I'm not sure what part of that experience, but that's cool. And I love to read comments like that. Like maybe this person was an entrepreneur as well and identified with, like, you know, how hard it is to be an entrepreneur, but how rewarding it is to be your own boss, to set your own schedule, to make your own decisions. It is so refreshing. You know, I've worked on books with publishers before, and they tell you that you can't do something, and it's so frustrating to just be told that, you know, and sometimes they're right. Sometimes, you know, I'm not going to say that I'm always right. I've had, you know, editors and art directors make changes that I'm so thankful that they made, but there are a lot of times where I've been told no, and the reason why was so stupid that I'm like, that's just very arbitrary. It's just like your preference, but it's not, you know, what about my preference as the illustrator? It's not going to make a difference on the sale of the book. So why you got to be messing around like that? And I will say, in defense of the publishing industry, they are mostly, at least with the mid-size and larger publishers, they try to be hands off. So that's a feather in their cap on that. It's just that sometimes, you know, I guess what I'm really talking about is you come up with a story idea, you really believe in your story, you know that other people would really find value in it, and they don't want to buy it from you, you know, for whatever reason. And I've talked about this before. That's actually getting harder right now. You know, if I'm a white male, and they're really not looking to work with someone like me right now. They're really looking for, and I've got this on some higher authorities too. They're really looking for biographies from important people in history that have a marginalized background, or that are LGBTQ, or some kind of a historical moment that has some kind of a left-leaning agenda to it. Anything with diversity or racism and women's achievements, those are all subjects that they're mostly looking for right now. There are fun books that are still getting published. I was looking at titles this morning. From my opinion, when I started, you know, in doing children's books almost 30 years ago, I mean, I've been an illustrator for about 32 years, but almost 30 years ago, it seemed like every book that was published was mostly about, they were fun books. Sure, there were historical books. Sure, there were some of those, but those were the very few, biographies and stuff like that. The most, 95% of the books that were being published were books that were fun in some way to kids, that kids could learn reading and have a good time at the same time. And now it seems like most of the books, it's flipped. It seems like it's the exception where a big publisher will publish a book that's just fun. So it's frustrating if you have a story and you want to tell it, and you know that other people would find it interesting. Chances are, if you don't have the right set of circumstances, let's call them, so I don't get, deleted by the algorithm. If you don't have the right fill in the blanks, then, chances are you're going to get rejected. And that's really frustrating for an entrepreneur. We want to move forward. We want to make things, and we want to test them in the market and give them a chance to let real people decide whether they're good, to vote with their dollars, yes or no. So there's that. Then everyone has weird names like Flame Emperor, says, what's the lowest moment you had financially as an illustrator and what pulled you out of it? It's funny because the lowest was probably, I would say, around, gosh, this was a long time ago, but I was probably an illustrator for like 3 or 4 years. And I thought I was really established. I was getting plenty of work. And then one February, I remember it was a February, I had one job for $800. And I think my monthly expenses at that time were right around $3,000 or $4,000 a month is what I was counting on getting. And of course we had some credit card debt that we shouldn't have had. But, and that's one thing that I advise all of you, do whatever you can to stay out of debt. You know, it's like Dave Ramsey says, live like no one else so you can live like no one else. And I really believe that, even though I've become less of a Dave Ramsey fan recently, but that's in a whole nother story. But anyway, yeah, you gotta keep your expenses low. And so I had one job for $800, and I thought, because I was used to getting like 5 or 7 or 8 or 10 jobs a month, and all of a sudden I just dwindled down to, I got nothing. And then I had one job that month, and I went for like a whole month, and I thought, well, it's over. It's just done now. I'm not an illustrator anymore after 4 years. And then all of a sudden I got slammed again. And I've heard a lot of other illustrators talk about this. That basically like, just take advantage and be glad that you have some time off when the lean times come. Use them to your advantage, because you're going to get busy again. And I know that for some of you who are having trouble getting any work at all, that probably seems hard to imagine, but there are a lot of illustrators out there right now that are just flushed with work, that are getting tons of work. And yeah, they've weathered those storms. It's another reason why you really have to live on less than you make. Take the average of what you're making in a year and live on less than that, so that you can make it over those lean times without completely stressing out and feeling like you got to scramble and get a job, because you're not going to make your payments for the next month or two. What pulled me out of it was, I decided that I was going to work really hard on improving my portfolio, because I took it personally. I thought, well, if I'm not getting enough work, then it's got to be me. It's got to be my portfolio isn't good enough. And so I cranked out some pieces that replaced a lot of the pieces in my portfolio that month, and just decided to get busy. And that's something that is, I can tell you is true. It kind of goes along with that abundance mentality in the universe. You will reap what you sow. I had a lot of friends that when they would hit lean times, they'd go fishing or do something, and there's nothing wrong with taking some R&R time, but that's all they did on the lean times. And pretty soon they weren't illustrators anymore. You can never improve enough. I mean, like you've got to get your work, and there are aspects of your work. It's not just the way it looks. It's the storytelling that you're doing. So I worked on my portfolio. I had pieces that got me more work down the road, and that I've always done that. Whenever I've had lean times, I start working on the things that need to be done that I don't have time to do when I'm working. And then Brooke Andy says, I know you're doing a 5-book series with Pickleball Paul. Just wondering if you've considered making a board book with your characters, like Baby's first pickleball book. You could use pickleball terms like kitchen and Ernie, or would a project like that not be cost efficient? So I have had this thought, and I wanted to do some board books. The big reason why I didn't, I have a lot of ideas. In fact, I have a whole list of project ideas that I want to do, that I want to be able to get to. And that is definitely one of them, a board book for pickleball, because I think I'm seeing how grandparents and parents are reacting to this book. And I'm thinking, well, there's a whole nother market of board books. And yeah, that would be a really fun thing for them to get. Some of you guys might be able to beat me to market with that, and that's fine. That would be a great thing to do if you have a way to market those in the pickleball world. I think it would do really well. But basically that's why I haven't done it, is I just don't have time. I've got to stay focused on the project at hand. I have another idea for pickleball with a book that I want to do. And again, it would take me away from working on this project. I don't think I will know how good this project is going to be, whether it's just kind of a hobby business or if it's an actual real brand with legs and, becomes a brand basically that I can build on for the rest of my life. I think I'll be at least 3 books in and probably 4 by the time I know that, which is a huge investment to put forward, but I love working on it, and it's mine. I would love to tell you a story about another project that was done with a big publisher that I can't really talk about because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings of like why I think it failed, but those things happen and they're out of my control. So yeah, that would be a cool project to work on. CLC says, I think I've said this before, but you need to put out shorts on YouTube. And he's not talking about like my boxer shorts or anything like that. The short videos. Before you reach 10 people on Facebook, you can reach hundreds of people on YouTube. Put one out every single day. You'll see an increase in viewership and most likely sales before you even know it. And shorts don't even have to be fancy, just eye-catching. So here's the thing, and this will bring me to another update that I wanted to make, is that unfortunately the Facebook ads that I've been running they're just not profitable enough to continue doing. And for whatever reason, we just haven't found the right audience or with the right ad or something, and it got way too expensive. And there's some other comments on this thread that I'll address a little bit with that. But yeah, so I actually am planning to do some short videos, which I could put on Instagram, YouTube, and maybe even TikTok and Twitter and stuff like that. And so I have a lot of ideas, and I need to do that. And it's a tough thing because I have this huge list of things to do, and I will be sharing that actually in our self-publishing class. I will be sharing the list that I'm keeping in this project and every little task that I need to do that I get to cross off my list, things you wouldn't even think of. But that is on my radar this summer to start doing those kinds of shorts and just incorporating it. And I think what I'll do is probably try to record like 4 or 5 of them a week, like on one day, and then edit them and get them out there and see if I can gain some traction doing some creative things on shorts. It's not the funnest thing for me. I'd rather draw and paint and write and create these stories. I think that's kind of how all of us are. We just wish we could just draw and get paid, and draw and get paid, and paint and get paid, and just kind of hunker down with some music on or a video on or whatever. But it's just not realistic. If you wanna have your own hustle, you gotta hustle. So yeah, that's something I'll be doing. Point and shoot video says, does anyone ever put out 2 to 3 books at a time with the same character, or is it always one after another based on the success of the previous book? I don't know of anybody except Brandon Sanderson who worked on 3 books all at one time. And if you haven't looked up his series, just go to Kickstarter and type in Brandon Sanderson. He's actually, ironically, a friend of mine, not a close friend, but we are very friendly, and he's got the highest grossing Kickstarter on YouTube right now, or on Kickstarter, highest grossing Kickstarter. I think it was $43 million, not $4.3 million, $43 million. And he did 3 books at a time. I can't think of anybody else that had the audacity to do something like that. And the thing is, I don't think it's wise. I think he was in a position, like he was already very, very commercially successful and bringing in a lot of money. So if anyone could afford to do that, I would think it would have been him. To where, he was making the kind of money that before he did that, where I'll bet he could have skipped a couple of years of work and not missed a beat. That's just a guess. Maybe even a lot more than that. So he could afford to work on 3 books and go, hey world, guess what? I didn't write just one. This is his Kickstarter video. I didn't just write one. I didn't just write 2. I wrote 3 books, and here they are. And you can get them in these leather-bound editions, and they're just amazing. And it went viral. And so if you could afford to do it, maybe that would be a good thing to do. I tend to think that it's better to get your project out there and just count on churning and getting traction over time. That's what I'm trying to do on this. It might take me 2 or 3 years to really build the kind of audience that I want on this book. Might take me longer. I don't know. But it's an adventure, and it's fun to work on. And so I'm just going to keep chasing. Another update that I forgot to give you guys before I read the next one is I turned in my book to my designer last Friday, and it feels great to be done with my second book in this series. So, and I'll show you the cover here. Here's the second book. It's Pickleball Paul and the Missing Paddle, and so there you go. Another cool comment from Anato Schultz. Thanks for the insights. Doing the same thing over here in Germany. All the best to you and your pickleball project. Thank you so much. From Super Vilmays. Hey, have you thought about deals with influencers? There's a lot of teachers and speech language pathologists that are influencers, and we are all obsessed with kids' books. And so I have, it's on my list of potential marketing things to do. Again, like I only have so much time in the day as one person to try to find, to hunt down these kinds of things. So yes, I would be interested in that. If they approached me right now, that's kind of how it would work. And I'm not approaching them because I just don't have time to go digging right now on that, but I probably will have time later on. Really one of the hopes that I can get to is that I can get enough money coming in that I can hire someone as an assistant to kind of do a lot of this stuff. Someone that could probably edit videos for me and amongst, some of these kinds of things, like doing some research and finding these kinds of influencers that might be willing to do kind of a mention on their channels. So yeah, I have wanted to do that. Carlos says, thanks for being honest and not just selling the hype on how great being an entrepreneur is. You are very welcome. I watch a lot of YouTube channels, and I unsubscribe from people that I feel like are trying to manipulate me in some way or another, aren't giving me the truth. And it's pretty easy to spot when people are doing that. That's the whole relevance of YouTube. That's what makes YouTube so interesting, is that there are so many people willing to share sometimes way too much about themselves, but willing to share, a lot of honesty. There's a lot of people out there. And, remember when reality TV came out and then we found out it wasn't real at all, or we just sensed the BS, and then all of a sudden they just didn't try to hide it anymore. And it's these stupid scripts that people are doing, and these crazy storylines that you're like, why am I watching this? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. I can tell that you're this isn't genuine. This isn't you. I am someone who wants genuine, and I want to give that as well. So I'm glad that you, Carlos, that you're feeling that for me. Dude, I get $100 a month. So what's the problem? I am so poor. I hear you. I've been there. I feel blessed to be in a spot right now where I can take some of the money that I've made over the years and on this project, and that I don't, that I'm not relying on this project for money. It is the best place to be. Sorry, I'm getting a text right now. Let me turn that off. It's the best place to be if you're trying to start a project, because that way, you don't make decisions out of desperation, and you don't second guess all your decisions. You make your decisions. If you spend money that ends up being wasted, you go, well, lesson learned. But it doesn't eat into your rent money, and and I don't know how many of you are watching this video that watched all the others in this series. So I say the same things over and over again, and some of you probably get sick of hearing it. But that's why I live in this small house. It's not a tiny house, but it is a very, very small house. Less than 1,000 square, or right around 1,000 square feet, probably like 900 square feet or something. Very small, to the point where I could easily afford to pay cash for it. And because of that, it allows me to not obviously have a mortgage payment, put solar on the roof, don't have an electric bill. So with those two bills being gone, and the fact that my property taxes are really low because this house is really small, and we live in a 55 community that has one of the lowest HOAs I've ever heard of, right around $200. And then our city water, sewer, garbage bill was like 120, and so we get that covers our water, sewer, garbage, and then there's $80 for the pools and the pickleball and everything else. And so that was a part of the plan. I could have bought a nice house, could have bought a really nice house, chose not to, so I could do projects like this. So just know what you want to get out of life, and try to work towards a goal. I'm sure there are a lot of people that there's other communities around here where we've met people that have these big, huge houses, and when they find out that we live here, they're like, oh, well, you live there full time. It's not just a vacation home. Oh, okay. And what they're really saying is, oh, you're poor. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I don't mind. You can think whatever you want about me. I don't care. What I care about is being able to live the kind of life that I want to live. I want to be able to get up in the morning and go swimming or go play pickleball, and in our community, and have a really nice lifestyle and not have stress over money. And that's what living within your means lets you do. Paying cash for cars, I drive an older car. The truck is newer, but the car is pretty old. It's 10 years old and it runs great. So things like that allows me to spend money on a project like this. Thanks for being real. You're the best. I'm not the best, but I'm trying to be real. Thank you. Then Alzamanart says, hi, Will. As someone from the so-called Global South, I find these videos critically important for me to realize what self-publishing in an established market is really like. The good things and the not so good ones. I'm guessing South America, global South, maybe. And if you're facing an uphill road to sell your books in the U.S., where there are options of distribution, shipping systems, and crowdfunding, and indie bookstores, and Amazon and the whatnot, versus us having absolutely none of that. So wherever this person lives, they don't have any of that. Now I see why I don't know many illustrator peers quitting their day jobs. Not even me. In fact, and this is something that's taken a long time for me to make peace with, I recently visited Mexico, where I touched base with several artist friends who make comics, and they basically face the same set of difficulties. But I know this book of yours is long tail bet business plan, and I vouch for this project to prove successful in the end, as a token of appreciation for publicly sharing with us. Thank you so much. And yeah, it is a long tail, and I like that. Kind of like on the graph, the long tail. Yeah, it's definitely, I'm betting a lot of time. And I thought about it when I was doing this. I'm like, what if this turns out to not be a huge moneymaker? Well, I had to pick something that I loved. And so worst case scenario is I don't make a whole lot of money, but I had a whole lot of fun doing it and got to make a whole lot of people happy in doing it. And I've already seen that. I watched so many people so happy to have their book and to share it with their grandchildren or their children, and watch, I've been given videos of people reading it to their kids, and their kids are loving it. They love finding the pickles. I actually hid 100 pickles in the next book. So this one had like one in every illustration, and I said that on the page 2. I said, "Can you find all the pickles?" There's one in every illustration, and I thought, why just stop there? Because that's one thing that people really love. And sure, it's gimmicky, but it's fun, and people love it. So I hid 100 in the second book. And Holly says, "I'd love to see more of what you're doing with Facebook ads. What kind of strategy you're using?" Yeah, well, so far the Facebook thing didn't really work that well. I do want to try it again around Christmas time, and the reason for that, and I have been told that the cost per click goes way up at Christmas time because there's, all the advertisers are competing for the same eyeballs and clicks and stuff. And so I don't know, maybe it still won't be worth it, but what I'm thinking of doing is when I will have book 2 by September. I should, with all things, if all things work right. I have heard that there's a strike on the ports on the west coast of the U.S., which is where the ports that my book came through in L.A. And I heard that there's a strike going on right now. That was last week. I don't know if it's still going on. Don't know if it'll affect me when my books are supposed to come here, but that's a possibility. But what I want to do is I want to say, on my website right now, this book is $25. And what I want to be able to do is say, hey, but you can add another book. It could be the same book. You can add another book for $15, which would essentially make both books $20, right? And I think with that kind of value offer, I might be more profitable with ads. So I'm going to kind of wait for that to happen. So there you go with the Facebook. And then Paige says, I stopped using Facebook ads because their cost per click is insane. Thanks for sharing your experience in self-publishing. Yeah, I've heard that the heyday for Facebook ads was in the 2016, 17, 18 time period where Facebook was undercharging for their costs per click. And now a lot of marketers are saying they're overcharging. So who knows? Maybe it'll swing back a little bit and they won't charge as much. But I mean, they're smart. They've got the computer knows. What they're doing is whoever's willing to pay is gonna get those clicks. He's gonna get those ads put there. And from what I've been told, the better audience or and Facebook ranks people by how much they buy from Facebook ads. So there's tiers of people that Facebook puts people into buckets, right? And if you've bought like one thing in your whole, let's say 10 years on Facebook, you're in one bucket. If you've never bought anything from a Facebook ad, you're in the lowest bucket. If you bought, 3 things a year, you're in another bucket. If you buy one thing a month, you're probably in the top. And they don't sell those top people to just everybody. From what I've been told, those are people who are doing the highest ad spends. So I've heard that the rich get richer on Facebook as well, where if you have a product that's doing really well and you're willing to set your daily ad budget at, $1,000 or $5,000 a day, and you're cranking in the money. I mean, you're making $10,000 or $20,000 a day, and you got your ad budget at $5,000. Yep, you're dipping into that top bucket. They're not going to sell those people to just anybody. That is the way it goes. And then Felipe says, "Hi, Will. Thanks for the update. I'd like to ask you to consider to create new artworks related to the book for ads, like promotional stuff, trying to avoid spoilers." So I think what they're saying is like, how do you create ads for your book without giving too much away? For a children's book, I personally don't think that you can give you can give a lot away in a children's book because you're trying to sell to the parent who is then going to read to the kid, right? So even if you give away too much, if you gave away stuff that the parent likes, they're going to buy it so they can share it with their kid. So I don't know. I think that we're dealing, with a movie, you don't want to give too much away because you got to get the people to come and see how it turns out. even though I think they give away way too much in the trailers. And if there's a movie that I like, I purposely avoid the trailers. I won't watch the trailers because I'm like, they just give way too much away. But they know their business, and so if they're giving too much away, I think with a children's book, we can afford to give even more away. That's my theory. I'd love to know what you guys think. If anybody disagrees with that, I'd love to know what your thinking is. Change my mind. And the last comment, if I haven't said this already, this is a great series. Thank you so much, Cosmic Beanbag. Cosmic Beanbag. Thank you. I love sharing this, and I'm hoping that this helps you guys on your journey, and I hope it inspires people. I did a series a long time ago when I was doing Little Heroes on how to run a comic convention business, and like I shared like everything on there. And I would meet people at the shows sometimes who would come up to me and go, "Hey, the whole reason I'm here is because of your videos on YouTube." And then I would say, "I'm so sorry that I got you into this." But no, I mean, and it's neat to share things. And, when you share stuff comes back to you tenfold. I find it at least sometimes I make discoveries when I make these videos, when I say things out loud, or I'll be reminded of something that I've forgotten that I want to do. And so it's fun. This is a really weird format that we're sort of having a conversation with comments that have been left over the last 2 weeks. And now I'm talking to you guys and inviting you to leave comments ongoing on this video, which, I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. This week I thought, oh, let's just make a video based on the comments, and maybe I'll do that more often. Obviously, if it does well enough, it'll get to a point where I can't read them all, but who cares? It's just fun. I'm having a lot of fun with this. This is a really fun time in my life to be able to have a good work-life balance and to be able to share this stuff with you guys. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you stayed this long, and you do like my content, it does help if you hit the thumbs up. It does help if you are subscribed. But don't do it unless you like what you're seeing, and I will see you on the next one.